Hey guys, Johnny Disc Golf here in my bedroom during day 50 of the quarantine, and that means we are 50 days without the disc golf season. I am joined today by the tour director and CEO of the DGPT, Mr. Jeff Spring. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing all right, Corey. How are you?
All things considered, I'm doing okay. To be honest with you, I haven't made a putt since even before Waco. I haven't been practice putting, but I did get out and throw some discs yesterday. A couple of our golf courses in the city closed and are just parks now, so it's kind of cool to get out there and throw
Yeah,
some discs in a place I've never even been to.
that's wild.
So how's everything on your end? I imagine you're in Vermont, correct?
I am. Yeah, we moved our touring vehicles up to Emporia actually after Waco,
Oh, okay.
and kind of just waited to see how things were going to unfold for a couple days after suspending the tour, and then we decided to head back. Evan and I are from Vermont, so we
Mm-hmm.
we headed back in an RV in one of our RVs, and
Okay.
our other media coordinator Sam decided to stay out in Emporia. Didn't want a chance to travel at that
Yeah.
time, and still hanging out there. And we're still in Vermont, and yeah, just working from home.
Wow. So I've actually seen. I mean, this is just derailing from what I was going to ask you first, but I've seen that there's quite a few disc golfers kind of making camp in Emporia. Is that like a pseudo like disc golfers with no homes hub?
I'm not sure. I think that originally talking to the DD crew there, they were inviting their team players. They
Mm.
have some safe type of facilities to have people lodge. I know
Hmm.
that there's a RV park that's open, and I think it's just a spot that they offered up. So we were I think expecting some team members there, and then as guidance evolved, we decided hey, we're not going to film people playing disc golf or really have a lot of like social interaction, which originally we were wondering if that would be okay, and
Hmm.
kind of hoping to be around there and film with some players individually, but decided not to go that route because of guidance. But at the same time, I think Emporia, central, you can go a
Hmm.
lot of different places from there. And
Yeah.
then DD is super welcoming and friendly. So, there, thanks to them. I said that a couple times just because we are storing, I think, a trailer, on in around the warehouse. So
Hmm.
they've been super helpful, and everybody's just, I think, trying to look out for each other. So,
Yeah, you're not kidding, man. It's really is like a fundamentally insane time to be alive. But the last time we chatted was like maybe an hour after the Waco event ended. Um, I think both of us were a little bit like, I mean, when you do disc golf touring, right? You just find yourself I don't want to, I hate to say in a bubble a little bit, you know what I mean? But you don't really realize the full context of this thing, like nation and worldwide, when you're so nose to the grindstone. What's it been like for you personally over the last, I guess this is like 7 weeks now? As this is really set in stone, I've just been like to the store and back for 6, 7 straight weeks now.
yeah, I mean, same here. It's been okay. I think that there's positives and negatives. Obviously, the effects on society and the health of people, big negative. Positive is that we have a little time to catch up. We
Hmm.
just basically have been had our hair on fire just to stay up to date with what we were planning and what we wanted to do, since just taking over the tour last fall, because
Hmm.
it has not been not a long startup ramp
No.
really.
Yeah.
We're getting going, and so we're catching up on a lot of stuff, and making some plans. I think that the other good part is that people get to be creative and really dig in to some ideas that they might have had, some cool
Hmm.
different approaches on media, and also just I think businesses are like not just disc golf but everywhere are just like adapting and
Yeah.
figuring out ways to offer new products or services and just do business differently.
Hmm.
So it's been good and bad. I'm doing okay. Vermont isn't like a heavy hit state.
Sure.
They pretty much do social distancing anyway.
Yeah, that's
We
just a
do.
lifestyle out there.
Yeah, I mean, but no, honestly, there are I think like 900 cases in Vermont. It's definitely settled down. I think in the rural areas, it seems like
Hmm.
there's not spikes and stuff. So hoping and looking forward to moving forward past this time, hopefully soon.
Yeah, and personal and how your daily life is affected aside, the disc golf pro tour really, I felt like, had a lot of momentum as the year had was starting. Obviously the ownership change, brand, just visually, the interaction with the fans, all of that stuff had taken a lot of awesome and productive steps forward. Brody coming on the Disc Golf Network, the statistics there. How did this break or layoff, and we're not even out of the woods yet on it? How has that affected that momentum? From a business standpoint.
I think we're kind of just treading water. It obviously put a stop to like growing momentum, but I
Hmm.
think the folks that kind of jumped on board in terms of like being excited about the new direction of the brand haven't really gone anywhere. We feel that as soon as the season starts back up, that momentum will pick back up in its own way. I think when we start thinking about events coming out, like we really think about on site and online. We want a
Hmm.
lot of people on site for these events, and we want a lot of people watching online.
Sure.
And obviously, the on site portion is probably not going to be there for 2020 unless some drastic changes, unfold. But
Yeah.
can't really imagine having crowds this year. But I think that when we get back to organizing tournaments, that the folks online, that momentum will pick right back up, and we don't see any indicators, saying that won't happen. So,
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to like kind of restarting that touring season, hopefully for pros in some way, shape, or form. If it's prudent and if it's safe.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned the on-site. Really, like you said, I can't imagine there being crowds through 2020 at least. From a sponsorship standpoint, like I know, just having dealt with Prodigy a lot and seeing how they operate, one of their big returns on sponsoring an event is in person. Whether it's vending or it's on-site assets that don't necessarily make camera. How does that affect the bottom line? Does the sponsorship package still? Are you guys rethinking that? Does that still carry the same value? Where are you
Mhm.
with that?
Well, we're certainly rethinking it, and there's certainly a difference in value if on-site's not happening. So,
Hmm.
so that's definitely something I acknowledge. I think that from my sense of talking to folks in the industry and our partners and disc manufacturers and retailers is that the online business of disc
Hmm.
golf is seeing an uptick,
Yes.
which makes sense. I think if you combine the two, it's probably we're probably not seeing an overall uptick in overall sales. But it's hard to contextualize that.
Yeah.
What I would say is that there's ways to adapt, and I think the disc that you have earmarked for on-site sales can go to local retailers. I think a lot of the events we go to do have some retailers nearby. Usually
Hmm.
we go to hotspots for disc golf. If you look at Portland, there's like 5 actual like brick and mortar
Yeah.
businesses there. And I think that adapting a little bit and getting what would be earmarked for on-site reduced, but then pushed out in the community to people who probably still want the merchandise in some,
Hmm.
maybe not at the same volume, but if people want a shirt and a disc from the Portland Open, having that available from a local retailer, I think it's still doable. In terms of sponsorship value, I think you're shifting to online, and we would hope that when we start back up, there would be strong numbers of people watching. I think that there's an appetite, and my hope is that we see stronger numbers than ever online, and that that it's going to be a blend of taking some of the support from partners, kind of converting it the on site support to online, and then a
Hmm.
different way of on site. But there's no doubt about it that the events are going to be different, and that's not just from the execution of them, it's also from the mechanics of getting the funding for the events and making them something that's profitable for our partners, for us, for the players. And that all has to do with figuring out how people are consuming and purchasing and viewing. And so we're open and flexible, and I feel like we have a team that's going to be able to find value for everybody, if we're able to step back into that arena.
Yeah. I truly, I can't even fathom the amount of you know work and I's that need to be dotted, T's that need to be crossed. Like from your end, just providing a safe experience for all the players seems like such a task, really, in how things are going. I'd like to talk about that a little bit. You mentioned to me personally, and then on your stream as well, that the Portland Open is what you guys kind of have your eyes on as that first big event to keep its date.
Mhm.
Um, last night you said, or yesterday, excuse me, you said you're obviously not positive it's going to happen, but that's the goal.
Mhm.
Um, how do you go about doing that when there's 100 players spread across 48, 50 states that don't have the same regulations, that aren't in the same situation? Maybe people from Vermont have been not so exposed, but like asking somebody from California or me in the Bay Area, like one of the biggest hotspots, to travel to Portland, how does that work from your guys' end?
Yeah, we're considering a lot of different elements of this, but it all starts with the venues and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that the venues are able to operate, that we're able to operate the tournament under the circumstances that we would put on it, all the regulations, all the safety precautions that we would take for the tournament, and um, then go from there. So that's step one: is the venue viable? Is the county and the state guidance saying that we could hold an event under our specific guidelines, and then go from there. So just to talk a little bit about that, groups of four or potentially two or three, in a tournament setting. We've determined, a couple guidelines that would make that actually probably a little safer than just casual play, which a lot of states
Okay.
have.
Yeah.
A lot of states have casual play of golf, casual play of disc golf that's either stayed open or is opening up. And so when you look at that, and take a tournament, we would put, stricter guidelines. We would make sure players can't congregate. They can only get there a short time before their tee time. They have to leave
Mm-hmm.
quickly after. All that kind of stuff. Make sure the social distancing is in place, and that there's enough volunteers that will also spread out to make sure that there's no spectators, to make sure that people are doing proper social distancing. So when you look at that scenario, and there's a lot more guidelines there about like scorekeeping, caddies, all that kind of
Mm-hmm.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I won't get too far into the weeds on that, but
Sure.
if you look at that scenario, that can be executed with a little bit more oversight than just casual play at a course. And so that's step one, is making sure that the local course is okay with it, is controllable, and that we can do an on-site activation that is within the guidelines of the community, the state, and the federal government. So then the travel is the thing that we're digging into
Yeah.
now. And I think that, we have to see some things. And I mentioned this, like we got to see campgrounds, RV parks, Airbnbs, hotels, all online for our touring golfers to access and feel safe, using. That said, travel from state to state. Yeah, I think that ends up being something that it's not prohibited, by the
Mm-hmm.
federal government. You can still travel across the country. We have, a lot of people, unfortunately or unfortunately, depends on where you fall, but that have to be working now.
Mm-hmm.
They're designated as essential workers. They're in transportation. They're moving goods across the country, and so there are travel, people traveling across the country for whatever reason. Flights are still up and running. Airlines are running. So I think when we get to that point, that's a very understandable concern and decision that some of the players will have to make. And I've talked to players both ways so far.
Yeah, I was gonna
I think
ask
that,
about that. Yeah.
yeah. So I've talked to players that are like, yeah, I'm willing to do that. I'm not that concerned. Like, I want to get going. I want a chance to play. It's time to get the season going. But I've also talked to players that are, concerned about, traveling or getting the virus or spreading the virus. And what I say to that is that, I would expect people on both sides of that, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's where they're at now. I think that everybody I've talked to, I'm like, if it ramps up, the people that are saying I'm comfortable may not be comfortable.
Yeah.
If it continues to maybe plateau and descend, then you see players that might not have been comfortable now in 2 months, maybe they are, because we're talking still 2 months out.
Sure.
And as you noted, like it's been 50 days. It's over double that time till the Portland Open right now. Like it's 2 months. It's like 60 days to the Portland Open.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's
So,
true. Yeah.
but like the decisions are really going to be like, in a month of like,
Hmm.
hey, hey, we're
Yeah.
planning, we've been planning. Okay, we're confirming because things are continuing to look good. But it's tough. There's so many elements, and I just would say that we're considering all of them, and
Hmm.
trying to do our best to hear from the players, to look at travel advisories, to understand what the risks are. And at the end of the day, we want the majority of players to feel comfortable moving forward, and not just a select few. I think if we're feeling that it's a select few, then there would be another thing to consider, like
Yeah.
maybe even if local guidelines are good and if travel guidelines are okay, and people still aren't feeling comfortable, that's going to play in for sure.
Um, is the disc? I mean, granted, we're not. I mean, our scene is not Major League Baseball. We're not the NFL. We'd like to grow and have that as aspirational. But is the disc golf pro tour in a position to offer tests for players? Like I know the MLB and NBA, like that's central to them coming back. Is every player will be tested? Like I think NBA was almost like twice a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we have not explored offering testing for players at this time, mostly because I think of the we want the tests to be available for people that need them, and we know that there's still kind of it's in the works to get enough tests for just even the general
Hmm.
population.
Hmm.
That's one thing. I think that the second thing is that golf is a lot different than a contact sport. I could
Hmm.
see why
Absolutely.
basketball and football or anything that requires someone to be in contact with each other be tested. I think
Hmm.
it's just a different, you can social distance in play.
Sure.
And I think that as society is continuing to move in its own new way
Hmm.
now, like you do still go to the grocery store. They're not testing everybody who goes to the
Hmm.
grocery store,
But
but you
we
are
are.
like kind of close with people, like hopefully distancing. There's a lot of different regulations at stores now.
I was gonna say because we have to wear masks if we're outside. So is that something like would the players have to then wear masks while they play? I mean, this is just from a Californian.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's all local guidelines,
Hmm.
right? So I think like when we get to July, if we're in Oregon and there's a mask guideline for being outside, it's something that we wouldn't try to overcome.
Yeah.
That said, I don't think there is one in Oregon. There is one in Cali, huh?
Yeah.
Right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
If you it's you have to if you're outside like at a park, doing your own thing, it's not mandatory. But if you're doing any sort of like business or going shopping or like going to do any essential things, you can like be fined for not having a mask, which is kind of crazy.
Right.
But
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, we're not going to try to buck any like local
hmm.
guidance at all or anything like that. And we're not going to push forward unless we get to a point where things
Sure.
are just reasonable. And I think like if we're like, hey, the Portland Open scheduled for the end of May, we'd probably already have canceled it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like we do have a little bit more time, and I think that hopefully another month of for instance, like I know that there are some golf courses in California that are reopening, right? Napa County.
Well, May
Um,
4th. May 4th is that big date where, we're even in our disc golf course is even considering, we're not going to, but we've considered opening back up.
okay.
Because yeah, it's like the non-essential athletics with shared equipment,
Right.
I think is how they kind of phrased it.
Yeah. 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 And I mean, that's a big word too, is like, we're not essential. Like, so if
No.
it comes down to it, if there's going to be, essential versus non-essential, we're non-essential, and we're just going to
Hmm.
follow like the non-essential guidelines. It's something we love and are passionate about and have a lot of our, all of our life built around, in terms of the pro tour, the players, media. But it's not essential in this
Hmm.
time frame. So, we're just like really just, like I said, waiting, watching and hoping.
Yeah.
So
So I know you got a thing coming up, so I don't want to keep you too long, but there are a couple things I'd like to get now that we're towards the back end of the interview. Number one, You mentioned already here a little bit and on your stream yesterday about, players can't be at the course 30 minutes beforehand and they have 30 minutes after the round ends to leave. Combine that with the fact that maybe, I can't go to a bar, I can't go here, I can't go there. Like, it is that, I mean, in theory, then disc golfers are going to be like locked in a hotel room for 20 hours a day in random cities across the country. Like, from the players that you've talked to, does that even seem appealing? Like, that sounds terrible.
I think that the idea is that probably you would find like a local park, like we would identify parks or fields, playing fields that would be okay to have people go and like warm up on. But that's getting into a minutia that we haven't really
Yeah.
finalized. I know that we're talking regularly with the PDGA, and there's going to be a very detailed document about how sanctioning could come back online in spots. So, I mean, that's the other thing. If sanctioning isn't going, we're not going.
Exactly.
That like for in terms of this, at least that's our stance currently. Is that we're working with the PDGA, we're watching what they're doing, we're hoping to keep all these events sanctioned, and yet sanctioning's still banned through May. So like from what we're seeing from the PDGA, it's going to be state by state. They put that out. So if people haven't seen that, you should check out, what they're thinking about after May, which is like certain localities, like state by state, coordinator driven, applying for reopening and going through a process that makes sense. So when that all happens, what will touring life be like? I don't think it will be as fun to be.
Yeah.
You're not going to be bouncing around the city. It's going to be probably like I'm out here because I want to compete and it's my job, and I like competing enough to have to follow like local guidelines and be on the road. Like it's also for us, like thinking about it, like we would be going to RV parks, right, and needing to make sure that we're still following the local guidelines, being safe there at the RV parks, and then not doing much else, right? It's probably not going to be different than what like we're doing now, only
Yes.
like doing the necessities to travel. I mean, even in like when we were like in Waco, traveling up to Emporia, traveling back to Vermont, it was a whole new normal. You know what I mean? Like you're staying in your RV, you're staying in your vehicle. I mean, if somebody is like in a car or flying in, which some people might do, I've heard, like then they would just be going to their Airbnb, which are significantly cheper right now.
Yes, I actually
just,
looked
just
at it.
staying there and just like only going to the grocery store, only coming back, right? Only it's gonna be a lot of adaptation.
I think so. I think like Paul Macbeth is probably like, perfect, let's do it. That's what he does anyway, right? But I'm thinking about those 30 to 40 guys who are 980 to 1020 who aren't winning every tournament and who do it because it's an incredible life experience. And how often do you get to do this? If you guys do have like, let's say 20 people that want to make the tour, is the juice worth the squeeze at that point?
I don't know what the number is, but there probably is a number out there that you got to consider. Like I said before, like if we see the majority of people like, hey, this isn't really gonna work, then it does become a little bit more of a regional pro, with like, because like there's a lot of pros in Portland area.
Oh yeah.
Are they going to? It seems like, hey, we would come out and play, right? We don't have to travel. But what is the touring contingent? What are those numbers? What are the considerations? That's like what we're starting to look at now.
Sure.
It's like all those things. I think there are like a very, very real possibility that the segment you described, or basically I was thinking before, like a bottom third in terms of like touring viability, who stay with people, like a network of people. They're not going to houses.
Yep.
They're not going to be like, oh, hey, I always go stay with Joe Schmo.
Yeah, it's a lot more expensive.
Like I'm not staying there anymore. Like, right. So I think there's a big question of like, my job is starting back up, but I don't have the funds to actually do my job, or I don't have the comfort level to go do my job as a touring pro. And that's something we don't want to ignore. That's not something we're going to like just say, oh, whatever, just do it if you want to. We're actively going to think about like, the effect on that situation of that group of people.
Sure.
And, see what we can do and see what the conditions are to make that possible. I think like if there may very well be a section of pros that say, yeah, I'm not gonna go, and then it's like, hey, our decision is, yeah, how many are going on tour, and is that, does that work,
Yeah.
for disc golf? Because I know that a lot of fans at home would, even if hey, we have 30 people, 30 men, 20 women, they want to go. Could we just do a tour? Could we do a tour? And like those folks are playing. Is that fair? I think about essential workers a little bit, and like it must be tough to be like an essential worker and feel like you have to go to your job, you have to travel, you have to go do this stuff. And again, disc golf is an essential. So, we're not insensitive to this stuff, and they're very real discussions, and hopefully this evolves in a way where, come midsummer, which, 4th of July in Portland, is really at the start of midsummer. Hopefully, we see in the next month, like really good continual movement towards, hey, this is viable. Players are all really itching to go. People are going to figure out their travel concerns, and we'll be there.
Awesome. I mean, really, I'm excited. Excited isn't the right word, but I'm happy that it's you and your team in charge of this whole thing, because it's such a touchy subject. It's such a touchy situation that, I'm confident that you guys are going to put in the work, though, and put in the effort and make the right decision. I know you got a meeting, but I do want to give you a chance to say anything to the fans out there. Anybody watching, anything to say to the folks out there?
I just hope everyone's well. We send our love and thought and care out to everybody. It's a tough time. We're trying to keep content going. Like we have our best shot bracket going right now, which is
great.
Fun. We want to see new best shots, actually happening this year, and aces and like great moments. But it's good to relive what's been out there the last few years. And then, hopefully we have a little bit of return to putting competition. We have the virtual putting invitational.
Yep.
And we've already got, Macbeth is going to be there. Paul Ulibarri just signed up. Sarah Holcomb's in, and the registration just opened last night. So it should be a good field of like pros competing, we think. So that's going to be released as like, kind of like match play, like March Madness style tournament. So I don't know if anybody missed that. Check it out. That's May 14th through 17th is going to be the round of 32. Maybe you can join us live to analyze some of the matches, Corey.
I'd love to. Just let me know, man. I've got the studio set up now.
Yeah. And then the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final Four, and Championship are like next weekend. Okay. So it's going to be the 21st through the 24th of May or something like that. So those are all going to be streamed live. It's going to be like a block in the afternoon and evening. I think it's going to be fun.
That's right. No, that sounds incredible. Yeah. I'm actually super looking forward to that.
Yeah. So, other than that, we hope that everybody's being safe out there, and like, we're going to do whatever we can to get back to it in a responsible way, to the tour and to pro disc golf. So we're hopeful.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jeff. Really, I appreciate it. I know you got, a million things that you need to handle. That's all I have for this interview, though, folks. If you'd like more, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out a little bit after that interview. Got the home studio all set up and going now, so that means a lot more content coming to you during this quarantine off-season 2.0. I'd like to plug my Patreon, patreon.com/JohnnyDiscGolf. Probably the best way that all you fans and viewers can stay engaged. Other than that, I'd like to thank a few sponsors. OTB, Disc Golf Pins, Jeff Faze of Jeff Faze Designs hooked it up with a few awesome stickers. Love his work. He's been doing a lot of the visual stuff for me. Other than that, thank you to the viewers. I've been doing disc golf for about 3 years full time now, and while this break is putting a lot of question marks on what the future might hold, I'm always confident that I've got a sea of fans and so many people out there across the world rooting me on and just enjoying my content. So, again, thank you so much, and can't wait to do more.